This is Michael Kelly, reading from Rampant Damsels. A little excerpt from the first chapter, An Unaccepted Party. Friegel's plan was to find an inn, get something to eat, have a hot bath to wash off the snot and shit, abuse himself shamefully, then have a long sleep after his tiring and stressful journey. There seemed to be 3 hostelries around the edges of the square, so he should be able to procure a place quite easily, or so he reckoned. He revised his opinion very quickly when he approached the first inn, whose sign proudly proclaimed it as the Dwarf and Goose. His apprehension was first aroused when he realised that the image on the sign did not depict a dwarf and a big white bird as expected, but rather a dwarf with a pained expression being shockingly goosed. His eyes then took in the little detail that every pane of glass in the place was smashed. Finally, his instinct for self-preservation had him ducking behind a barrel as the fight erupted out into the street. Drunk patrons walloped each other with bar stools and sliced each other with broken bottles, while berserker bouncers in bearskins set about clubbing the lot of them whilst yodeling joyfully. 10 minutes later, the groaning little gnome hauled himself out from beneath the splintered shrapnel of the barrel he had taken cover behind. It had protected him from the worst of the conflict, but an accidental blow from a bouncer's club had finally reduced it to matchwood and chipped a few of his bones. Friegel crawled away as fast as he could, leaving the Dwarf and Goose behind him. The next establishment, the Silver Sickle, looked more serene. Its sign bore an image of a crescent moon, and the black walls were lightened by the silvery lamps that cast their pure light through the glittering windows. Even the 2 bouncers outside the door looked elegant, clad in black robes with silver trim. His confidence somewhat restored, Friegel plucked up the courage to approach. "Good evening," he said, with a slight bow. Gnomes being so close to the ground already are too self-conscious to get even closer by bowing too deeply. "I wondered if you might have a room available for the night, a bed and breakfast perhaps?" "Good evening, sir," replied one of the doormen politely. "Bed is no problem, but we won't be serving breakfast tomorrow." "No breakfast?" asked Friegel despondently. "Not tomorrow, sir. This is the Silver Sickle, a hostelry owned and operated by the YMDA, the Young Men's Demoniac Association. Each night we select by lot one of the hostel's guests, who has the honour of being sacrificed to grim Snufflemuff, the ram of 1,000 tentacles, by being diced into tiny bits with the aforementioned silver sickles." "At least that's normally the case, sir," interjected the other bouncer. "But once a month we hold a blood feast, when everyone can join in, setting about each other with sickles, slashing and slicing." "Yes," enthused his comrade, "and the lucky survivor has the great honour of finishing himself off by feeding himself into a bacon slicer." "Always himself?" asked Friegel weakly. "Never a woman, then?" "Hells no," protested one of the bouncers. "We're not weirdos, you know." "And don't tell me tonight's a blood feast," groaned Friegel. "Yep," exclaimed the first doorman gleefully. "You got it. So, no breakfast tomorrow, as there'll be no staff left to cook it. No customers to eat it either, all sliced and diced." "However," said his fellow, "the temple are sending over a new chef in time for lunch tomorrow. The things he can do with a steak, you just wouldn't believe. I tell you, he's really going to put this place on the map for its food." "Until he's filleted with his own knives at next month's blood feast, at any rate," amended his companion cheerfully. Of course, it's only a short-term appointment. Pity we won't get to sample his dishes, really, since we'll be bloodily slaughtered in tonight's festivities." He produced a quill and a bottle of ink, and unrolled the register roll, Infernal Pact. So will that be a single room for one night then, sir? But all that remained to be seen of Freegal was a small cloud of dust that had been kicked up by his shoes. The final inn in the market square was a very tall, timber-framed building with a fishmonger's on one side and a shady alley on the other. A sign depicting an impossibly buxom wench proclaimed it to be the Rampant Damsel Tavern. Unusually, there were no bouncers to be seen, but a crisp notice pinned to a board made clear the house rules. No spitting, no swearing, no fighting, no farting, no picking of noses or bottoms, nothing which might offend a lady's sensibilities. Freegal, who considered himself a pint-sized love machine, was very fond of ladies' sensibilities, and he had no intention of offending them. Lusting after them, fondling them, seducing them and pleasuring them, yes, but offending them, no. Licking his lips in eager anticipation, he ventured within.